Hi there, my name's Dez and I'm the Director of Youth for Europe, the Middle East and North Africa. And I have to say, I am so excited to be sharing with you guys today. Karsten has asked for me to share with you some of my experience of my 13 years or so of youth work, especially around Generation Z. My background has been working with this generation. In fact, I only came to faith in 2008. So everything that I have been on, my faith journey and trying to understand who Jesus is, has been uniquely shaped by this generation and their questions. As I've learnt more, as I've spent more time with these young people, it's shaped my thinking and given me a real insight into where I think Generation Z are at right now. I think there are 7 key identifying characteristics, and I'd like to take some time for us to look at them today. And those are social, collaborative, in control, inclusive, self-reliant, unique, and authentic. Each of these characteristics plays a unique part in the makeup of Generation Z and uniquely shapes the way in which I think we need to approach our working with them. Now, before we go too deeply into those, I'd love for us just to spend a little second just thinking about who Generation Z are and some of their makeup. They, on average, spend 13.2 hours each week with downloaded content. They'll probably never buy a postage stamp. They've never existed in a world without a smartphone or, for that matter, the internet. Most of them will only have ever owned an iPod as their way of downloading music. They probably won't read a newspaper. And a huge percentage of that generation will never have experienced any kind of Christian message. They were born into a digital age where all technology and all information has been at their fingertips. They're sharp-witted, they're very smart, and they're very capable of getting information there, then, and when they need it. And more importantly, they make up 25% of the population of the world now. They're a force to be reckoned with. With all of that in mind, let's start to unpack a little bit of who this generation is and in relation to how we can connect with them in a better way. They are socially minded. They've existed in a framework where everything's permissible, all types of culture, all types of understanding of your sexuality, who you are, your identity is acceptable. There's an equality to the way that they think. They understand that everyone is made very differently, but we all exist in this one planet together. They are so uniquely driven by that. It shapes the way that they behave and it shapes the way that they think about the world. That's why when we look through Netflix, we'll see a much wider spectrum of all understandings of social normity. For them, that is just where they are at. They will, in most part, have at least a homosexual friend, if not someone who's transgender, and probably somebody who identifies as pansexual. This means that their understanding of societal norms is hugely different from that of every previous generation that's went before. They think collaborative. We have that means that the teaching, which some of us may have experienced, where you sat in rows with the teacher at the front, doesn't exist for them. They've always worked in groups. It's been the norm in teaching for this entire time of Generation Z. They have understood that working together to achieve an outcome is the way that we do things. This continues in the workplace with the rise of hot desking, the idea that everyone works together around tables and problem solving. They see it more and more with even the companies that they desire to work for in the future, Google, Tesla, Apple. They work in different ways to the normative ways that we've seen in the past. They will always understand a collaborative approach is much better. And when we look at that in conjunction with their societal understanding, there's a space for everyone at the table, regardless of opinion or thought. They desire to be in control. Everything that we've done has set that generation up to be in complete control of everything that they have. They download the content they want when they want it, they buy what they want from where they want, and use whichever means of payment that they feel necessary. They understand things in a totally different way to how we would. We are a generation who perhaps thought eBay was an amazing breakthrough. This is a generation that have only existed during Amazon, and especially during lockdown times, especially here in the UK, we've seen online shopping go through the roof. They don't understand the need for a high street because everything that they can get is at their fingertips. Just like their information, just like their content, they can access everything they need with their phone in the palm of their hand. They're inclusive. Means that everyone is included. There is no hierarchy. Now, that doesn't mean that teenagers and young people don't ostracize and make people's lives difficult, because they absolutely do. But their understanding of why and where doesn't exist. We see things like the huge rise in Black Lives Matter, and young people totally blown away by the fact that this is an issue for parents and grandparents, because for them it's normative. It's always been the case that everyone can be included. They're self-reliant. Of teaching, because of their ability to be in control, they don't think they need anyone else. They don't think they need the support of us aging people. They can find whatever they need and solve it themselves. I have to say, I understand this. Just think about it. When was the last time that you struggled to do something? I've just got a new car and I couldn't get my car to connect to my iPhone. So what did I do? I used YouTube to find out how. They're a generation who have done this forever. Everything that they need is at their fingertips. Therefore, their understanding of traditional models of going to learn how to do something go out the window, because everything they need is at the palm of their hand. Generation Z are have also heard all of us talk about them and understand that they think that way. They're a generation who digital things don't matter as much. 0-hour contracts are attractive because you might get a better offer of doing something else. The behavioural patterns that have been in the generations before do not exist for this generation. They think completely differently. Most of them realise that to become a homeowner means that it's going to be much, much later in life. Even the concept of renting somewhere for a long term is always going to be done collaboratively with friends, and perhaps in a way that we don't recognise today. Their understanding of what it really means to be a generation is shaped by this uniqueness, and they themselves are trying to identify who they are in every beat of their hearts. And most importantly, the thing that underlies all of this is a desire. The true integrity, that deep-rooted sense of you just be you. The phrase "you do you" is commonplace amongst Generation Z, and part of that is because they actually mean it. Everything that I've spoken about already highlights this. They understand that everyone is together. We're all in different places, but hey, it's just life. We need to get on with it. But integrity matters to them. Fallen idols, people who say one thing and do another, have a huge detrimental effect to Generation Z. They've been shaped by WikiLeaks. They've been shaped by false promises and falling down of various political and large-scale organisations. 2008, where we saw all of the banks collapse, was a massive deal for them. They've lived through that understanding of these large organisations are not to be trusted. We see a huge rise in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. This all comes from the fact that their hunger, their desire is for authenticity and what they can believe and trust in. If you say you're going to do something, you better deliver it for Generation Z. Now, I realise that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour around some of the characteristics that I think I've identified for Generation Z. And it might not seem that from any of what I've said that there's opportunities for the church to speak into that. However, I think we have a massive opportunity. Each of the issues that highlight and identify Generation Z are things that we can tackle. If we think about their understanding of societal needs and society coming together, that's what we believe in the church. We believe in equality for all. We believe that we are one body, united under the love of Jesus Christ. Regardless of our denomination or our ecclesiology, we understand that Jesus is at the centre, God is at the heart, and we move as one together towards that. As we talked about, their uniqueness is unique to them. Does that work? I think it does work. Yeah, it's unique to them. And we need to embrace that within the church. What are we doing as a body, as a family, to say, hey, you guys are different and we want to meet you where you're at? Maybe meeting on a Sunday morning isn't going to work for them. Maybe we need to think about a Tuesday afternoon. Maybe we need to readdress the balance of what it actually looks like to have a service. Maybe we need to adopt a cafe-style model. Maybe we need to rethink what online could look like. All of these things just are a pointer for us to stop and engage with, just to say, just for a moment, let's think about it. The result might be that working collaboratively with Generation Z, that they turn around and say, actually, we love what we do on a Sunday morning. But we need to have the conversation to know that. Assumption will always become the downfall. By opening the doors and having the conversation to these unique people, we can learn so much more about how we can be open and welcoming to others. And that brings us round to our final point of authenticity. And if I may pick on two people in the Bible that I think epitomise what we need to be doing for Generation Z, is Barnabas and Saul. Now, these are characters that we know the stories so well about Saul becoming Paul, but the key character for me in this whole narrative is Barnabas. Barnabas is the guy who opens the door. He says, do you know what? I think we should give this guy a chance. When they go to find these young upstarts who are seeing God move in miraculous ways, he seeks out Saul and takes him with him and disciples him and walks along beside him. And then as the story unfolds in Acts, we see a taking over when Saul becomes Paul, and then it's Paul and Barnabas. Barnabas made his ceiling Paul's floor, and he was able to say, stand on my shoulders and become a giant. Paul goes on, as we know, to write 2/3 of the New Testament, thousands of words of advice for everyone else. But we would never have had Paul if it wasn't for Barnabas' sacrifice. Barnabas' willingness to say, hey, I can do something with this guy. I'm going to give him some space. Barnabas demonstrated authenticity and integrity in a way that I desire to do for Generation Z. I would love for all of us to find someone that we could disciple and invest in and see them raised up. I'll give you an example of that in my life. I have someone in my team called Laura. I was her house group leader at the age when she was 14. We have been on a journey now for 8 years. She became an intern while I was the youth coordinator at Alpha Scotland. We gave her a job helping me with some stuff, and that journey has just grown and grown and grown. Her experience has flourished and grown. She spoke on stage at the Baptist conference in Scotland at the age of 16. She's now one of the key leaders in our nation and someone who people hunger to have involved in their youth development programs. And she's 22 years old. She has years of experience already, and she is just continuing to grow in that and will go on to far exceed everything that I could achieve. She's a phenomenal character, and just simply by opening the door, listening and going on that walk with her, I'll be able to see my investment in her flourish, God's investment in her explode, and the kingdom become realised a little bit more. And that's what we all desire, isn't it? I could talk about this forever, but I won't. I will leave you to enjoy the rest of your day. I hope some of my thoughts have been helpful for you and stimulating your thinking. If you'd ever like to have a discussion, I'd be really up for that. Please get in touch. I'm available on all kinds of social media. Thank you so much. I've really been blessed to share with you today. And if I could just pray for us quickly, I would just say, Lord, open the doors. Help us to meet this generation head on and see the joy that can come from being a light in the darkness to Generation Z, to allowing our ceiling to become their floor. Amen. Thanks.